quit your job to follow your passion. इससे घटिया एडवाइस मैंने आज तक नहीं सुना.
What is the mindset of a crorepati?
करोड़पति बड़े अलग अलग किस्म के होते हैं क्योंकि उन्होंने पैसा बनाया कैसे उससे डिटरमिन होता है कि वो उस पैसे को संभालते कैसे हैं.
Tell me the time when you felt truly in deep shit.
In August of 2015, Nearby.com, which was my previous startup, had started.
Yeah.
And we raised $17 million from Sequoia Capital. We were looked at the next big thing in the startup world. We were about 440 people. And in March of 2016, about 85 of them had to be laid off, which was the hardest thing I think I've ever done. Financial security means कि आपके पास एक consistent income flow है, which takes care of your life. Financially independence का मतलब है कि आपको पैसे के लिए काम करने की जरूरत नहीं है.
One regret of your life. We have come a long way from कौन बनेगा crorepati to सब बनेंगे crorepati. Our today's guest is somebody who is on the mission to make it possible for the people of our country. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have not yet guessed it, we are talking about the very famous Ankur Warikoo. And in today's conversation, we spoke about not only about his understanding of finance, but we spoke about what it means to be a content creator, what it means to be an influencer, what it means to be a father, and above all, what it means to be a human being. So let's take a dive. Ankur, thank you so much. Such a pleasure having you here.
No, absolutely. Thank you, Gaurav, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Finally, you're here.
I know.
It took me some time to chase you. Come on.
देर आए दुरुस्त.
There I durust hai, absolutely. Ankur, as I was telling you, right, I have been watching your videos. There's so much to learn from you. And I think more than what you talk about, your presence, the choice of your words, they speak to me.
Thank you.
And I genuinely mean that. So thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you. It means a lot. Thank you.
You've spoken a lot about financial freedom. You have been one of those YouTubers that people celebrate. You have been an influencer. Well, I was thinking that what is it that I should be asking Ankur? So I want to know Ankur. Who is Ankur without being a YouTuber, being an educator, being the status that he enjoys today? Who is Ankur?
Tough question, yaar. इस सवाल का जवाब will be, I think, a lifelong journey. But if I have to answer, Gaurav, I would say that I'm a student of life. I really, really love the concept of life. And I feel कि अगर आप जिंदगी को समझने में, जानने में, उसको इंटरप्रेट करने में अपने आप को डिवोट कर देते हैं, you begin to experience and enjoy it very differently. As against assuming कि जैसे स्कूल और कॉलेज के बाद हमें ऐसा लगता है कि पढ़ाई खत्म हो गई है, अब हमें काम करना है, और जो हमने पढ़ा था वो हमें अप्लाई करना है. And life is all about application and not so much about learning anymore. I feel that's when we stop growing at some level. But if you continue to treat yourself as a student, and the subject is life, and it could be anything, it could be people, it could be nature, it could be travel, it could be books, it could be music, it could be your own self, then I think it's a never-ending school or college that you will thoroughly enjoy. और कोई exam नहीं है, that's the best thing. तो कोई परीक्षा नहीं है, कहीं pass fail नहीं है, and it's lovely that way.
From being somebody who used to work for a corporate, then you started something of your own. You left that as well. And now, as we were talking, that you enjoy teaching the most. In all these years, what has shifted for you? I mean, the way जिस तरीके से आप life को देखते थे, जो आपका नजरिया था life को देखने का, the way you used to define life, and the way you define life today.
सबसे बड़ा shift, गौरव, यही आया है that I have realized it is absolutely okay for you to take time to figure out what you want to do and figure out what could happen from it. मैं एक ऐसे era में था और शायद एक ऐसे environment में था, and of course ऐसी फितरत के साथ था, where I was in the middle of the startup culture, venture funded, raised a lot of money from marquee investors, running a tech startup in the absolute center of the tech boom that was happening in the country about 5 or 6 years back, still continues to. And I got sucked in.
Yeah.
And I also, frankly, enjoyed that. So the ambitions की unicorn बनाना है, the ambition की हर एक घंटा productive होना चाहिए, और हर एक दिन chock block होना चाहिए, with meetings, with decisions, with strategy, with context changing, and फिर कोई सोने जागने का हिसाब नहीं है. And you love that hustle. Like you feel proud of that fact that you're busy, that you are foregoing so many things because there are some things which are far more important for you, and that's the purpose. And now I'm a completely changed person. I realized कि शायद सब कुछ बकवास है. ऐसा भी हो सकता है कि अंगूर खट्टे वाला केस है, क्योंकि it didn't work out for me. So now I am living a life where I know it has worked out for me and I thoroughly enjoy it. लेकिन अब जिंदगी ऐसी है गौरव कि दिन बहुत खाली है, and I enjoy it that way. बहुत वक्त मिलता है सोचने का, रिफ्लेक्ट करने का, लिखने का, पढ़ने का. I am running a bootstrap startup. तो किसी का फोन नहीं उठाना है, किसी को ईमेल नहीं भेजनी है, किसी को कोई रिपोर्ट नहीं शेयर करनी है. एंड सरप्राइजिंगली जितने ज्यादा अपडेट्स में अपने वेंचर फंडेड बिजनेस में नहीं देता था, उससे ज्यादा अपडेट्स में अब देता हूँ अपनी टीम को, दुनिया को भी, क्योंकि अब किसी से कुछ छुपाना ही नहीं है. ये मेरा बिजनेस है, ये मेरी जिंदगी है, मैं इसको अपने ढंग से जी रहा हूँ, बना रहा हूँ. एंड आई कुडंट केयर व्हाट पीपल थिंक अबाउट इट बिकॉज आई लव इट एंड आई thoroughly enjoy it. And I'm super, super, super slow. And it's very surprising, if I may take 2 more minutes to illustrate on this, कि मैं फितरत से एक बहुत patient इंसान हूँ. So it's not that I was ever impatient. I was just, I think in my opinion, over ambitious. And I don't know why. Because it's not that I want to get to a certain milestone of money or anything. कुछ ऐसे desires नहीं है, कोई materialistic इतने fervor भी नहीं है. So I don't know what I was chasing and why. And today I realize I'm not chasing anything. I'm just living in the moment, and I couldn't care less कि आगे क्या होगा. I've had a wonderful past which has been full of mistakes, and I've learned a lot from them. And I love how I'm applying all of that in my current day, in my current life. And I think जिंदगी बहुत ही अच्छी रही है, बहुत कुछ सीखने के लिए मिला है, बहुत अच्छे पोजीशन में हम हैं. And I'm sure कि अगर आगे जाके कुछ कठिनाई आई भी, we will deal with it because life is far too big. So the big material shift in my life has been the pace and the ambition with which I'm living my life. To the extent that a lot of people will call me ambitionless today. कि कितना कुछ कर सकता था, लेकिन अब देखो ऐसे ही कुछ बेकार के कोर्स बना रहा है, उस पे ऐड चलाता रहता है, इरिटेट करता रहता है, कंटेंट इतना सारा चलता रहता है, like you're just all over, you're overselling yourself and all of that. And like I enjoy it, and I can really stop it whenever I want, or continue doing it even more so. But I like the pace at which I'm living my life.
Yeah, you know, while I was listening to you, Ankur, the different emotions that I could experience in my body, and the first part when you were talking about that फितरत से मैं slow हूँ, and the way you were expressing that, it something came to me. It's like मैंने कुछ इस तरह अपनी जिंदगी आसान कर दी, किसी को माफ कर दिया, किसी से माफी मांग ली. And then you said that no idea why I was chasing that. So today, when you are in that reflective zone, have you been able to figure out what were you chasing, for the sake of what?
I think I am. I think at that point of time, I was trying to prove to the world that I am a certain person that I was always capable of being. And that stems from a few insecurities. And the few insecurities are that when I was a school student or a science student, IIT जाना था, लेकिन नहीं हुआ. तो वो एक धब्बा. हाँ. And then फिर MBA करना था, तो कैट भी क्रैक नहीं हो पाया. और फिर कॉलेज के बाद PhD करनी थी, सो टॉप यूनिवर्सिटी जहाँ मैं जाना चाहता था वो भी मैं क्रैक नहीं कर पाया. फिर जब जॉब के लिए बैठा और कंसल्टिंग करना चाहता था तो टॉप कंसल्टिंग फर्म्स भी क्रैक नहीं कर पाया. So it's almost like I settled for the next best, the next best. And if you really ask me, the truth is, I didn't settle. It was actually the only option I had. तो याद है मुझे कॉलेज में जब IIT सब कुछ नहीं हुआ, तो मेरा एक ही कॉलेज में दाखिला हुआ, based on my number. और फिर जब मैं मास्टर्स करने के लिए US गया, तो मेरा एक ही यूनिवर्सिटी में दाखिला हुआ, बाकी सब में रिजेक्शन हो गया, तो मुझे वहीं जाना था. फिर जब मैंने MBA के लिए अप्लाई किया तो मैं कि एक ही इंस्टीट्यूट से दाखिला मिला, फिर मैं वहीं चला गया। फिर जब मैं प्लेसमेंट के लिए बैठा तो मुझे एक ही कंपनी से जॉब प्लेसमेंट मिली, तो मैं वहां चला गया। सो इट्स ऑलमोस्ट लाइक कि मैंने चूज नहीं किया, जो मुझे मिला था मैंने वो ले लिया।
You were the chosen one.
I like that's actually being very kind. It was like I lucked out.
Yeah.
That the only option I had was still not a bad option by any measure. It was really something remarkable and it worked out for me. But वो होता है ना कि एक surrounded by IIT, IIM founders and people who have gone through the best universities and the best degrees and then done this and that and ये सब वगैरह, and then they've raised this kind of money and then they've become these millionaires, billionaires. I was drugged into believing that मैं अगर यहाँ नहीं पहुंच पाया या मैंने अगर ये दुनिया को नहीं दिखाया तो मैं खुद की नजरों में गिर जाऊंगा, क्योंकि वो प्रूव हो जाएगा कि मेरे में वो है ही नहीं what it takes to be the best. एंड मैं एक सेकंड रंग थर्ड रंग प्लेयर हूँ, एंड फिर मेरा वजूद वही है कि तेंदुलकर तो कभी बन नहीं पाया, लेकिन हाँ इंडिया 11 में खेल लिया तो कहीं नाम दर्ज हो गया आपका हिस्ट्री बुक्स में, लेकिन आप गुमनाम ही हैं फॉर ऑल टेक्निकल पर्पसेस. एंड आई थिंक दैट्स व्हाट was the insecurity that I was trying to overcome or fill the gap of. And I think upon reflection, I realized what was the cost of filling that. I realized what is it that I truly had. And of course, I have a lot to be grateful for, and I continue to feel that way every day. But COVID was a really good time, because while it was a very hard time for a lot of people, it was a very meaningful journey for us as a family and for me individually. क्योंकि उस point पे मैंने अपना startup छोड़ा था, was in the middle of the break. I was trying to figure out कि मैं अपनी जिंदगी में क्या कर सकता हूँ. 40 साल का हुआ था, तो it also felt like a moment in life. And फिर धीरे धीरे चीजें बस जुड़ गई. I can't explain how, but this just came together क्योंकि लोगों के पास वक्त था, मेरे पास वक्त था, जो मैं कंटेंट बनाता आ रहा था उसको मैंने थोड़ी ज़्यादा अहमियत दी एंड थोड़ा ज़्यादा उस पर फोकस किया, तो वो अच्छे से चल पड़ा. एंड देन it was just a chance accident where I found myself teaching online, which I'd never done before. I taught for nearly 20 years, but in the offline world, in the real world. लेकिन ऑनलाइन की दुनिया कभी चखी नहीं थी from a teacher's perspective. But thankfully, people received it well, and the next thing you know, I'm just on that.
Yeah. I could so much relate to that, Ankur. I'm not at all from an Ivy League college. The closest I've been to ISB is this one. And now I've been really fortunate, the kind of people that I get to speak to, the kind of people that I interact with. And I know the pain that one carries when you know that you're not from one of those leagues, and when you are interacting with those people, there's a very soft voice that tells you that you're not capable enough, you're not good enough, they are better than you. Ankur, take me to a place in your life when you felt lost, because you have spoken about shit a lot. Come on, right? Do epic shit, get the shit done, make epic money. I don't know why, but I think you're in love with the word shit. Tell me the time when you felt truly in deep shit.
Oh, several times, yeah. But the one that I distinctly remember now is 2004. Actually, 2003, 2004, 20 years back. I was a student in the US in a PhD program, in a program that I wanted to always do for my life. Doing really well, top of my class, 100% scholarship, great university, everything going fine, but I just wasn't enjoying it. And I was struggling to make sense of it, and I was homesick, and I didn't have any close friends. I just recently made a few, but of course the gap was just too immense to be filled. I was missing my family, I was missing my then girlfriend and now wife, and I just didn't feel कि ये मेरी जिंदगी हो सकती है. I also felt very alone in the US, for no fault of the US, by the way. It really received me well. It was beautiful in every respect, but I just didn't feel कि मैं कभी भी यहाँ अपनापन जैसे महसूस कर पाऊँ.
There is something in the US like that.
Something. And at that age, when you are living your dream, and this is genuinely the biggest thing that has happened to your family ever, It's not like after a long while. I was the first person in the family to have stepped outside of the country's shores to study. It was such a big thing. I was living my dream. सब कुछ सही था. But I knew that I did not want to do it and I wanted to come back. And there was nobody in my world who understood that. And I would admit to a great extent, maybe I also didn't realize whether that was the right thing to do or not. बस सिर्फ दिल से यही आवाज निकल रही थी कि अंकुर, ये जिंदगी में तुम्हें नहीं वहां पहुंचाएगा जहां तुम्हें पहुंचना. तुम्हें ऐसा लगता था कि तुम वहां पहुंच सकते हो और शायद पहुंच भी जाओगे, लेकिन खुश नहीं रहोगे. So I had to make that hard call of coming back to India and starting my life all over again at the age of 24. And that was when I truly felt lost. And it was very surprising because the mix was of feeling lost but not feeling dejected. तो ऐसा नहीं था कि lost in a way कि मेरी जिंदगी बर्बाद हो गई है या मैं जिंदगी में कुछ कर नहीं पाऊंगा. Lost in the sense कि मुझे पता नहीं है कि मैं जिंदगी में क्या करूंगा, लेकिन मुझे पता है कि जिंदगी में कुछ ना कुछ तो हो जाएगा.
And that's not what I want.
Gaurav, I felt I was truly lost, but I never felt out of control of my life. And I don't think I've ever felt out of control in my life. Ever. Like कभी भी कोई ऐसा वक्त नहीं आया जहां मुझे लगा हो कि मुझे पता ही नहीं अगला कदम क्या हो सकता है. I always knew what could be a next step. I didn't know कि वो next step मुझे वहां ले जाएगा या इस मुश्किल को solve कर देगा. But I don't think anybody knows that. But what people, when they are stuck, and I often advise people to not fall into this trap, that whenever you're stuck, you're always trying to then solve the entire problem in one go, जो कि नहीं हो. आपको उसको वक्त देना पड़ेगा. एंड सबसे पहली चीज है कि आप जिस माइंडसेट स्पाइरल में फंसे हो उससे आपको खुद को निकालना है. एंड द वे दैट एटलीस्ट आई डू इट, व्हिच आई फील वर्क्स एंड मे वर्क फॉर एवरीवन एल्स एज वेल, इज जस्ट टेक अ स्टेप. Just move out of the XY coordinate that you are at on that life graph to another XY coordinate. वो कहीं भी हो सकता है, वो literally next step भी हो सकता है, लेकिन आप कम से कम जहां थे वहां नहीं है, उससे थोड़ा सा निकल चुके हैं. And that helps. It helps me.
Yeah. Ankur, when was that moment when you felt totally exposed? Now what?
That moment was 2016. And in August of 2015, nearby.com, which was my previous startup, that started. And we raised $17 million from Sequoia Capital, which is now Peak 15. And it was one of the biggest checks that they had cut. In the first go itself, we were looked at the next big thing in the startup world and so on. And then by Feb 2016, less than 7 or 8 months into it, we were facing drying up of funds because I had made some really poor calls as a CEO, invested in things that frankly did not matter, fancy office and marketing for branding and so on, merchandise and random things that didn't affect the customer's life. And it just coincided with a funding winter, as they call it in startup world, where funding is not coming as easily as it used to in the past, because things have become tighter and so on. And investors are looking for more profitable or at least less loss-making units and so on. We were certainly not one of them. We were losing a lot of money and we were running through the money that we had raised rapidly. And at that point of time, we had to take a decision to cut down our costs. We were about 440 people. And in March of 2016, about 85 of them had to be laid off.
Shucks, man.
Which was the hardest thing I think I've ever done in my life. Because it was absolutely no fault of theirs. They were very well-meaning, extremely hardworking, committed individuals. We had handpicked them. Hamara culture Nearby ka बहुत strong tha. So we used to genuinely invest in finding the right kind of people and invest in their growth and take care of them, respect them as individuals. So it broke me that इतनी खूबसूरत सी एक टीम बनाई थी and उनकी कोई भी गलती नहीं थी, लेकिन they had to lose their job. And we tried to, of course, help them get new jobs, and all of them fairly quickly got new jobs as well. But the big realization I had at that point, Gaurav, is जब आप किसी को lay off करते हैं, it is not about losing a job. It is about losing their self-respect. Because they constantly think कि मैं ना ऐसे क्या किया कि 300 लोग रह गए और मैं निकल गया, एंड मैं क्या ऐसा कर सकता था जिसकी वजह से मैं उन 300 लोगों में होता और उन 100 में नहीं जिसमें वो निकले गए. And that just messes with their head, and they don't have to go through that because it's not, again, their fault. It was some science which is twisted in our head that came up with that formula कि ये लोग निकलेंगे और ये लोग नहीं निकलेंगे, whatever was that method that we applied, but it just made it really, really hard for them and for me, because now every single day when I showed up, it was not so much about the 85 people that we had said goodbye to. It was the 300 people that still felt that level of insecurity every single day. कि क्या आज मेरी बारी तो नहीं, कहीं आज हमें तो नहीं बोल दिया जाएगा निकलने के लिए, क्या हम इस पे भरोसा कर सकते हैं, इसने जो सारी चीजें आज तक बोली थी वो तो झूठ निकले, क्योंकि वो सारी चीजें तो नहीं हुई. And you just begin to question yourself, and you begin to question your identity, you begin to question your position in that firm, you begin to question whether you were even capable of being in that position in the first place. And it took a long time to recover, because you're in the public eye and you still have to be within, and you have to keep reflecting inwards. It took some time, but I think I hardened up because of that experience in a way that nothing else in my life has.
And in that situation, Ankur, where did you find your solace?
Surprisingly, books and music. I still remember 2016, as soon as the layoffs were announced, I went on a small 3 or 4 day break with my family, and वहाँ मैंने एक book पढ़ी, Better Under Pressure. And I just picked up that book. I don't know why. And that book in that moment was a savior. Because it was exactly what the name suggests. It was, how do you remain sane under pressure? How do you deliver under pressure? How do you become better under pressure? Almost like how a diamond shapes itself up. And second was music. I love singing, while I'm not a good singer. And I love music in general. And मैं हर रोज ऑफिस जाकर लंच ब्रेक के बाद अपने हेडफोन लगाकर 2-3 सेट गाने थे वो सुनता था, साथ में गुनगुनाता था और रोता था. एंड ये होता था ऑफिस के एकदम बाहर, एक लॉन सा था वहां. एंड लोग देखते थे नहीं देखते थे, मुझे तो याद भी नहीं है, परवाह भी नहीं, लेकिन दैट यूज्ड टू बी माय therapy, if you will. That was just my safe space. That was my way of...
Which song was that?
It used to be, one song was this song called Turn to Stone. And it's a beautiful, beautiful song. The second one is one of my favorite songs, which is from the band Strings, which is Dur. And the third one is possibly the song that lifts me up whenever I am down and about. It's a song by Eminem called Lose Yourself. ये 3 गाने सेट प्लेलिस्ट थी, प्लेलिस्ट का 3 ही गाने, बट वही 3 ये थे. कुछ 10-12 मिनट का ये सीक्वेंस था, 10-12 मिनट.
Tears will roll down.
Yes, that was just every single day, clockwork, for I think about 2 months. And I think it just healed me. Books healed me, music healed me. Of course, family and everyone, my founders, all were there. But I don't think founder की जिंदगी ना कोई समझ सकता है जब तक वो खुद founder नहीं है. It's just very hard to explain.
It is.
Very, very hard to explain. You would get it to some extent. So I didn't expect them. And I certainly wasn't mad or disappointed that nobody could get me. Because I didn't expect them to.
That's a choice that one makes.
Yeah, exactly.
What does it mean to lose oneself?
I think when you are, एक ना बहुत खूबसूरत इंटरव्यू है ब्रूस ली का, and it's a really long interview, one of the rare ones that I recorded, but उसमें एक segment बहुत popular है, where he says, be like water, पानी जैसे बनिए। पानी की कोई शेप नहीं होती, लेकिन वो जिसमें चला जाए वो उसकी शेप धारण करे। आप उसको कप में डालिए तो वो कप बन जाता है, आप उसको पतीले में डालिए वो पतीला बन जाता है, उसको बाल्टी में डालिए बाल्टी बन जाती है, उसको हाथ में रखिए तो वो आपका हाथ बन जाता है। पानी बनिए, be like water. And I think that is what lose yourself means.
Yeah, I call my daughter Neer.
Yes.
And Neer means water.
Yes.
And we were sharing that why she's called Neer. And I can so much relate to that because my mother was like that. In whatever circumstance she would be in, she would just adjust to that. Yes. And I think that's one of the most underrated trait of a human being. That am I an ease to be with?
Yes. मैं खुद के साथ बहुत खुश हूँ, बहुत। मैं खुद के साथ घंटों बिता सकता हूँ। I'm not scared sitting by my own self. I'm not scared of my own company. मुझे लगता है कि मैं अपनी जिंदगी में अपना बेस्ट फ्रेंड हूँ।
मैं तो अपनी बेस्ट फ्रेंड,
मैं अपनी बेस्ट फ्रेंड, मैं अपनी फेवरेट मैं अपनी फेवरेट क्योंकि मैं खुद के राज जानता हूँ, मैं खुद की खामियां जानता हूँ, मैं खुद की खूबियां जानता हूँ, मैं खुद के ख्यालों से भागता नहीं हूँ, मैं उनको एक्नॉलेज कर सकता हूँ, मैं अपना बुलशिट कॉल आउट कर सकता हूँ। आई थिंक कोई भी इंसान से अगर मैं कुछ भी एज अ बेस्ट फ्रेंड एक्सपेक्ट करूँ, वो सारी चीजें मैं खुद बहुत खूबी से निभा सकता हूँ। सो मुझे लोगों की जरूरत नहीं है, लेकिन लोग जो हैं कम हैं, बहुत खूबसूरत हैं, एंड उनसे ज्यादा तो सर्टली नहीं चाहिए।
Ankur, what I got, since we are talking about being kind, you brought in the concept of curiosity in between as well. What, according to you, is the most underrated and the most overrated trait of an individual?
I think the most underrated trait of an individual is their ability to do the boring thing and fall in love with that. A lot of people call boring people boring. But it is the very same thing that makes them interesting.
Yeah.
It's the very same thing that works for them and made them most likely who they are. अगर आप देखेंगे, इमेजिन करिए रॉजर फेडरर, सचिन तेंदुलकर, विराट कोहली, कोई भी, शाहरुख खान को ले लीजिए, अमिताभ बच्चन को ले लीजिए, किसी और, सेम चीज सालों से करते आ रहे हैं, लगे हुए, टुक टुक टुक। जो आप मैच पे देखते हैं वो तो कुछ घंटों की बात है,
only the performance.
उसके पीछे लगे हुए, वो बुमराह कर रहा है 1 विकेट, डे इन एंड डे आउट, डे इन एंड डे आउट। दे फेल इन लव विद द बोरिंग। जिस पॉइंट पे 99% लोग गिव अप मार देते हैं, उस पॉइंट पे बोलते हैं कि अब तो शुरुआत,
अब एक और बार करते हैं,
एक और बार। एंड दैट इज हाईली अंडररेटेड। तो जब कभी भी आप किसी ऐसे इंसान को देखेंगे ना जो आपको लगता है बोरिंग है, यार क्या रूटीन है, वही रोज सुबह उठ के मेडिटेशन करना, वही सेम कपड़े पहनना, वही सेम खाना खाना रोज, वही सेम वर्कआउट करना, जिंदगी में कुछ मजा ही नहीं है, कोई वैरायटी नहीं है, वही चीज उसके लिए काम कर रही है। That's what's working for them. And by that same flip, the most overrated thing is the ability to start something new. We in the world applaud people who start something new. We don't applaud as much people who end something that they start.
Yeah.
क्योंकि नई चीज की शुरुआत करना तो बहुत आसान होता है,
बहुत आसान है,
बड़ी एक्साइटिंग चीज होती है, नए लोग, नया पैसा, नया जुनून, नई शिद्दत, नया कुछ एक्सपीरियंस, तो नया शुरू करना तो बहुत आसान है।
yeah.
लेकिन जब वो मुश्किल होने लगता है और बोरिंग बन जाता है, तब क्या आप परसिस्ट करते हैं और फिर उसको क्या आप अपने मकाम तक ले जाते हैं? That is the true trait of a successful individual.
Yeah.
So a lot of people will be like, "यार, you are सीरियल एंटरप्रेन्योर, ये भी शुरू कर दिया, वो भी शुरू कर, घंटा फर्क पड़ता है, जेन्युइनली कोई फर्क नहीं
सच बात है।
शुरू तो 4 करोड़ चीजें एक साथ कर सकते हैं। हो क्या रहा है उसका, इन क्या वो कहीं पहुंच रहा है, क्या उसकी वजह से कुछ बदल रहा है, that is what you should be asking, because if that impact or that purpose is not being fulfilled, then it is you just on a treadmill moving from one speed to another to another to another, while you're in the exact same spot.
Since you just picked up this that people call you're a serial entrepreneur, you've done this, you've done this, you've done this, and it's very exciting, of course, from the face of it. Now, what do you think? What are the myths people have about entrepreneurs, which are absolutely not true at all?
Myth number 1: entrepreneurship is a great way to make money.
Terrible way to burn money.
Terrible belief. It's a belief embedded in survivorship bias. क्योंकि आप उन चुनिंदा लोगों को देखते हैं जो न्यूज बनाते हैं, जो सर्वाइव कर चुके हैं, जो वो एक 0.1% क्राउड में थे, जो जिंदा रह गए, उनकी स्टोरी और उनकी कहानी अब आप तक पहुंच रही है, फिर वो यूनिकॉर्न बन चुके हैं, करोड़पति बन चुके हैं वगैरह। और आपको लगता है कि हर एक इंसान के साथ वही होता है।
And you love this word करोड़पति, right?
करोड़ is my operating. बहुत लोग गौरव हमारे YouTube चैनल पे आके कमेंट करते हैं कि इस चैनल पे करोड़ से तो बात ही नहीं होती,
इससे कम बात ही नहीं करते हम,
बात ही नहीं करेंगे। तो that myth number 1. Myth number 2 is कि entrepreneurship is really really exciting क्योंकि आप खुद के मालिक हैं। नहीं, जॉब में तो आपका मोस्ट लाइकली एक मालिक होगा, आपके मैनेजर या आपके बॉस। यहाँ आपके हजारों मैनेजर,
हर बंदा मालिक है,
कस्टमर भी मालिक है, टीम एम्प्लॉय भी मालिक है, इन्वेस्टर्स भी मालिक है, एंड आपके स्टेक होल्डर, शेयर होल्डर, वेंडर जो भी होंगे वो भी आपके मालिक हैं। सब आपको किसी ना किसी पॉइंट पे डंडा मार सकते हैं एंड आपको हाथ जोड़ के विनम्र होकर उनकी बात सुननी पड़ेगी, क्योंकि आप उनके लिए काम कर रहे हैं, वो आपके लिए नहीं, इन सो मेनी वेज। एंड देन नंबर 3, बाय दैट सेम एक्सटेंशन, कि if I am an entrepreneur, I am in control of my destiny. I am in control of what the outcome could be for my life. Again, not true. क्योंकि एक स्टार्टअप को सक्सीड करने के लिए या होने के लिए इतनी सारी छोटी 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 चीजें साथ में आनी होती है ना गौरव, कि the probability and likelihood of that happening at the same time is so minuscule.
पूरी कायनात को आना पड़ता है।
बिल्कुल, कि अगर आप ऑब्जेक्टिवली उस चीज पे देखेंगे ना, आप कभी भी वो शुरू नहीं करेंगे। कोई भी इंसान अपने राइट फ्रेम ऑफ माइंड में अगर डेटा देखकर एंड सबकी कहानियां सुनकर एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप करेगा, तो वो इंसान किसी हद तक पागल ही है, सेन नहीं है। And all of these myths, of course, get celebrated and get amplified, क्योंकि हम देखते हैं कि शार्क टैंक पे आए लोग ऐसे, फिर लाखों मिल गए, यहाँ करोड़ मिल गए, ये कुछ हो गया, वो क्यों हो गया।
तो you spoke about, we just discussed the myths part of it, right? You spoke about mindset in between. What shift in your mindset that you had to bring in when you shifted gears from being a corporate citizen to a startup founder?
Yeah, nearly 4 to 5 years. I think the big mindset shift was from what I'm doing right now to what I used to about 5 or 6 years back is, number 1, it is okay to be slow and it's okay to not push your way through growth. Number 1. Number 2,
beautiful space.
Incredibly beautiful space to be in.
Let me just absorb this one more time.
Please.
Can you please say it again?
It is okay to be slow and it's okay for you not to push your way through growth. Because that's what I was doing for the last decade.
It's so healing.
Yeah. And it's, the thing about growth is that growth is like a drug. When you begin to experience it, it's very, very hard for you to let go. But the reality also of most startups is, particularly when they're funded, is that the growth is led by money. It is not necessarily led by product. It's not necessarily led by the core ingredient, whether it's tech or it's operations or anything as a combination, it's led by हम पैसा डालेंगे, उस पैसे से या तो लोग ज्यादा हमें जानेंगे या उनको एक फाइनेंशियल इंसेंटिव मिलेगा टू बाय द प्रोडक्ट, डिस्काउंट के रूप में, कैशबैक के रूप में वगैरह, विच मीन्स दैट द ग्रोथ इज इनऑर्गेनिक. लेकिन एक बार जब आपने वो चख ली तो उस शेर से आप नीचे नहीं उतर सकते, क्योंकि अब वो भाग रहा है और जैसे ही आप उतरे तो वो शेर आपको खा जाएगा. तो नाउ यू हैव टू कीप राइडिंग द टाइगर. एंड दैट मीन्स अगर आपने पिछले महीने 10% ग्रोथ किया, बेस बढ़ गया, तो अब वही 10% ग्रोथ करने के लिए आपको और ज्यादा इनऑर्गेनिक ग्रोथ दिखानी पड़ेगी. फिर से बेस बढ़ जाएगा, फिर और ज्यादा और ज्यादा और ज्यादा और ज्यादा, एंड इट विल कंपाउंड. एंड दैट मीन्स you will never be able to realize कि इस business का core inherent organic growth क्या है, अगर है. Like what would happen if we just stepped back and allowed the product or whatever is your USP to play its role in the way that it has to, and see what happens to the universe. बहुत धीरे धीरे grow, but that's the journey you have to undertake. अब वो journey पे मैं आज हूँ. Because there's no hurry to be somewhere, there's no investor to please, there's no return that has to be delivered. खुद का पैसा लगा हुआ है, खुद का पैसा वापस आ जाएगा. It's immensely profitable and it has been from day one. It's a completely remote team. कोई ऑफिस नहीं है. पहले कहाँ हमने NCR का सबसे आलीशान ऑफिस बनाया था, which truly felt like a space of collaboration and growth and the right kind of vibe. And I was really proud of that space. Still am. It just came at a insanely obnoxious cost that didn't justify itself. And ESOPs दिए हुए हैं, लोग कागज पे तो करोड़पति हैं, लेकिन एक्चुअल में कोई पैसा नहीं है. Today it's a very, very different thing. The mindset has completely shifted. It's slow and deliberate. It is profitable. It is not getting to a certain milestone. It is giving people the best arms and ammunition to become the best version of themselves, while not selling them a dream that may not unfold in the future. And I like that. I love it. Absolutely.
No, since we are talking about money, we are talking about crorepati. But before we get there, would love to hear what is it that people might be surprised to know about Ankur.
Something that surprises people about me is that I am inherently an introvert. लोगों को लगता है यार इतना अच्छा बोलता है, ये करता है, तो extrovert. And like extroversion and introversion has nothing to do with your ability to communicate or your ability to meet with people or not. It has nothing to do with shyness. It has all to do with energy. Where do you get your most energy from? I get it from within. I don't get it from people. I get it from within, and that's why I'm able to dispense it in front of people. And there are people who are extroverts who would get it from people and then dispense it with their own selves or on their own selves. And another thing that people have often, I don't know why, said, or rather when I share it, they are surprised, is कि मैं अल्कोहल नहीं पीता हूँ, मैं स्मोक नहीं करता हूँ, मैं नॉनवेज नहीं खाता हूँ.
Same pinch.
And I don't know why that is surprising for me. उनको ऐसा लगता है कि तुम्हारे चेहरे से ऐसा लग रहा है कि
कर दो बस साले.
नहीं, हाँ, ऐसे कैसे हो सकता है कि जिंदगी पे इतना हाई है, ये कुछ तो है, कहीं तो कुछ सब्सटेंस है. पानी के अलावा मैं कुछ नहीं पीता हूँ. And yeah, those are the few things that often catch people by surprise for some reason.
पर एक तो चीज मैं दिल से कह सकता हूँ आपको, क्या बोलते तो अच्छा है.
Thank you.
And though it's our first meeting, Ankur, I can say that with hand on heart. कि आप इंसान भी बहुत अच्छे होंगे.
Thank you.
You have got very eased out energies.
Yeah.
Very, very eased out energies. It does not appear as if we are meeting for the first time.
Thank you.
So
I feel the same way.
Yeah.
Thank you for being so warm and receiving.
Thank you. And Ankur, despite that as well, I find you get trolled a lot on social media. I'm not interested in what's your take. What do you think? What is the mindset of the people?
They're just hurt. They're broken. They're hurt. Like if you really think about it, it must take a really broken person to shit on a complete stranger online.
Shit.
That's the only appropriate word I can think of. It's funny, Gaurav, कि I have a few ways of diffusing, of course, अगर वो एक नॉन एनोनिमस अकाउंट से आते हैं, मतलब अपने नाम के अकाउंट से आते हैं, ज्यादातर तो एनोनिमस ही होते हैं, तो कोई पता ही नहीं होता कि उसके पीछे कौन है। बट लेट्स से कि कोई अंकुर नाम का इंसान है जिस भी हिसाब से कुछ बोल रहा है, द सिंपलेस्ट डिफ्यूजन इज कि आप उनको रिप्लाई देंगे उनका नाम लेकर, क्योंकि बहुत ही कम लोग होंगे जो अपना नाम सुनकर भी गुस्सा रहेंगे। सो इफ आई वर टू से कि थैंक यू फॉर योर फीडबैक अंकुर, देन इट विल डिफ्यूज अंकुर. The reason is never me. The reason is never the person who's trolled. The reason is something in their life.
Disconnection within themselves.
It is absolutely something in their life. कोई भी, this is my firm belief, कोई भी इंसान जो वाकई में खुद की जिंदगी में खुश है, किसी भी और इंसान को नीचा कभी नहीं दिखाएगा, कभी नहीं दिखाएगा. जो वाकई में अपनी जिंदगी में खुश है, वो किसी भी दूसरे इंसान को नीचा नहीं दिखाएगा, क्योंकि उनसे उनको कुछ भी नहीं मिलेगा.
You know, as Ramdas says that we all are walking each other home.
Yeah, beautiful.
When did you realize that you have enough money? Since you speak about make epic money.
ये ना बहुत पहले ही realization आ गई थी, but it hit me hard in 2020. तो 2020 में गौरव, जब मैंने अपने स्टार्टअप से इस्तीफा दिया एंड आई डिसाइडेड टू टेक अ ब्रेक, ऑफ कोविड आ गया एंड सो ऑन, तो उस समय पे मेरे इनकम का, मेरा पूरा जो सेविंग्स था उस समय अपनी जिंदगी तक का, आई हैड इन्वेस्टेड इन माय स्टार्टअप. तो मेरे पास खुद के कुछ पैसे नहीं थे, एंड स्टार्टअप पे जो मैं सैलरी ड्रॉ करता था, दैट वाज मच लेस देन मार्केट सैलरी, जस्ट मैचिंग माय एक्सपेंसेस. सो व्हेन आई स्टेप डाउन, इट्स नॉट दैट कि मैं बेशुमार दौलत के साथ रिटायर कर रहा था या ऐसे कुछ था, nothing like that. I just wanted to do something else in life. And I had unlocked this income stream of keynote speak. तो corporate talks में जाकर उनके off sites, all hands, and I was getting paid handsomely for that. लेकिन जैसे ही कोविड आया वो रुक गया, and there was blanket zero income coming through, and I had 5 months of money left in the bank. स्कूल की फीस, घर की लोन का EMI, जो भी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी, सब कुछ मिला के 5 महीने का खर्चा बचा. 5 महीने run rate of 5 months, exactly, run rate of 5 months in startup parlance. And I remember at that point of time, I sat Ruchi, my wife, down and we were like, देखो 5 महीने का पैसा बचा, अब हमारे पास कोई चॉइस नहीं है, तो प्लान बनाना है. अब प्लान यही हो सकता है कि हम 3 महीने फाइट मारेंगे एंड कोशिश करेंगे कि कुछ नया इनकम स्ट्रीम अनलॉक हो जाए. अगर नहीं हुआ तो फिर जिस घर में हम हैं वो घर हमें बेचना पड़ेगा. हमने जो इसके लिए डाउन पेमेंट करी थी करीब 50 लाख रुपए, वो शायद होपफुली हमें वापस मिल जाएंगे. बाकी का लोन तो बैंक ले जाएगा, एंड इस 50 लाख रुपए से अब हमें अपनी जिंदगी बितानी है. तो हम पहाड़ों में मूव कर जाएंगे, बच्चों को होम स्कूल करेंगे, एक सरकारी स्कूल में बच्चों को पढ़ाएंगे, एंड 50 लाख रुपए उस जिंदगी के लिए बहुत ज्यादा. Are you in? And she was like, totally in. बिल्कुल. We were in fact excited about that. नई जिंदगी होगी. And that is when you realize that you always had enough. You always had enough. And you also realize, at least I realized that, कि I didn't do anything to get to that enough. It was all the hard work of my parents. क्योंकि उन्होंने फाइट मार के, उन्होंने अपनी जिंदगी में जद्दोजहद करके मेरी बहन को और मुझे एक ऐसी जिंदगी दी थी जहां हम कभी भी भूखे नंगे नहीं मरेंगे, हम कभी भी सड़कों पे नहीं आएंगे, हमारे पास कभी भी खाने के लाले नहीं पड़े होंगे या पहनने के लिए कपड़े नहीं होंगे, कभी भी वो जिंदगी नहीं आएगी. हमें पढ़ाया लिखाया गया है, हमें अच्छी शिक्षा दी गई है, हमें वैल्यूज दिए गए हैं, हमें प्यार मिला है, हमें छत मिली थी, हमें सब कुछ मिला, because of which our downside is capped.
It's taken care of.
It is absolutely taken care of. तो जो लोग बोलते हैं ना कि यार इनफ है ही नहीं, वो तो लालच के पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से बोल रहे हैं, ग्रीड के पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से बोल रहे हैं, सर्वाइवल के पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से नहीं बोल रहे हैं.
And there's no end to it.
There is never any end to it. क्योंकि आपके पास आज ये फोन है, कल को कोई और चाहिए होगा, आज ये गाड़ी है, कल कोई और चाहिए होगी, आज ये घर है, कल कोई और चाहिए होगा, आज ये इकोनॉमी है, कल को प्रीमियम इकोनॉमी और फिर बिजनेस चाहिए होगा. इसका कोई अंत नहीं है. कभी भी इनफ नहीं होगा जब तक आप फंडामेंटली ये यकीन नहीं करेंगे कि आपके पास है. So I think this moment made it very stark for me. But the fact that I had enough was always.
That has always
been.
Stayed with you. That has always been there with you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Right? And it was just the reality. जब भी मुश्किलें आई हैं, पैसे को लेकर खासकर, कुछ ना कुछ रास्ता हमेशा निकल गया.
So what does money mean to you today?
It is simply freedom. It is simply freedom. Freedom to live my life the way that I want. It is not to buy things. It is not to buy that fancy phone or that house or that car or anything like that material. It is simply freedom. The choice that I wish to exercise. कि मुझे किसके साथ काम करना है, नहीं करना है, कहाँ रहना है, नहीं रहना है, क्या करना है, नहीं करना है, कितने लोगों के साथ काम करना है, नहीं करना है, किस पेस पे ग्रो करना है, नहीं करना है, किस चीज पे अपने समय बिताना है, नहीं बिताना है, किस इंसान के साथ काम करना है, नहीं करना है, क्या खाना है, नहीं खाना है, कैसे खाना है, नहीं खाना है, कब खाना है, नहीं. All of those choices is just freedom. It's just freedom of choice. Yeah. And शायद वो भी एक illusion है. You never know when you start reading spirituality and you get deep into it. You realize कि शायद destiny is the only thing that explains the world.
Do you believe in destiny?
I don't believe in it, but if I have to be objective about it, it is all destiny. It is all destiny.
I am a firm believer of destiny.
सब कुछ लिखा हुआ है.
I'm a firm believer of destiny, and the more I'm walking in this life and the kind of people that I'm meeting, Ankur, one of the questions that I ask them is, if you were to create everything from scratch, would you be able to create what you have created exactly the same? I've not come across even a single person who said, you know what, I can recreate everything. In this book, Make Epic Money, one of the concepts that you have spoken about is, and I could relate to that when you spoke about financial freedom. You've also used a term called financial security here. Yes. Tell me, what does that mean?
So financial security and financial freedom are two different things. Financial security means कि आपके पास एक consistent income flow है, which takes care of your life. बहुत लोगों के लिए उनकी तनख्वाह होती है, उनकी नौकरी होती है. Freelancers के लिए उनका freelancing income हो सकता है, whatever the case may be. But that doesn't mean that you're financially independent. Financially independence का मतलब है कि आपको अब पैसे के लिए काम करने की जरूरत नहीं है. कि आप काम तब भी कर सकते हैं, आपकी इच्छा है, लेकिन जरूरी नहीं है कि वो चीज पैसे कमाए या उतने पैसे कमाए जितना आप कमाते थे. एंड पीपल कंफ्यूज द टू, क्योंकि उन्हें लगता है कि अगर उनके पास नौकरी है तो उनके पास फाइनेंशियल इंडिपेंडेंस है. लेकिन क्लियरली नॉट. जिस दिन आप काम करना बंद कर देंगे एंड आपका इनकम खत्म हो जाएगा, तब क्या आप तब भी अपनी जिंदगी जी सकते हैं? मे बी द आंसर इज नो. कुछ लोगों का लगता है कि फाइनेंशियल इंडिपेंडेंस इज द ओनली गोल, एंड फॉर दैट दे मेक रियली रिस्की डिसीजंस. जैसे एक बड़ा फैशनेबल चीज है कि क्विट योर जॉब टू फॉलो योर पैशन. इससे घटिया एडवाइस मैंने आज तक नहीं सुना.
A lot of people making money, crores and crores for themselves.
करोड़पति ही बन चुके हैं. क्योंकि जैसे ही आप अपनी जॉब को क्विट करके अपने पैशन को फॉलो करते हैं फॉर फाइनेंशियल इंडिपेंडेंस, आप अपनी फाइनेंशियल सिक्योरिटी दे देते हैं. एंड जिस पॉइंट पे आपकी फाइनेंशियल सिक्योरिटी ही चली गई, तो जिस चीज को भी आप फाइनेंशियल इंडिपेंडेंस के लिए यूज कर रहे हैं, जो कि आपका पैशन है,
you don't have the basic foundation with you.
Exactly. वो आपका पेशा बन जाएगा. एंड जिस दिन आपका पैशन आपका पेशा बन गया, वो पैशन नहीं रहा, वो तो फिर काम करने का जरिया हो गया.
Uncle, in your experience, having met so many crorepati, what do you think? What is the mindset of a crorepati that most of us tend to miss?
You know, it's a very interesting question, because I feel that wealthy people,
no, crorepati people, come on.
No, sorry, crorepati बड़े अलग अलग किस्म के होते हैं.
हाँ,
क्योंकि उन्होंने पैसा बनाया कैसे, उससे डिटरमिन होता है कि वो उस पैसे को संभालते कैसे. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, बहुत सारे लोग हैं जो खासकर दिल्ली में ट्रेडिशनल रूप से पैसा कमाते आए हैं, धंधा, बिजनेस, रियल एस्टेट, उसमें इन्वेस्ट करके दे आर इन सो कॉल्ड बोरिंग इंडस्ट्रीज, मैन्युफैक्चरिंग है, ट्रेडिंग है, तो एक्साइटिंग नहीं है, कूल नहीं है। चांदनी चौक में एक छोटी सी दुकान है, करोड़ों का धंधा चल रहा है, लेकिन कभी भी कोई उनको घास नहीं डालेगा क्योंकि कूल नहीं है। They think of money more often than not as something that they still have to actively manage, they still have to actively control. And तभी उनका फिर वो एक कल्चर आता है जहां वो लाला कल्चर कहलाता है कि ना वो हर एक प्राइसिंग डिसीजन को, मनी डिसीजन को खुद से फ्लो करवाएंगे, डेलीगेट नहीं करेंगे फाइनेंशियल डिसीजंस को, एंड सो ऑन. एंड द सेम थिंग will happen in their investment as well. Then there are, say, these new age millionaires या करोड़पति जो टेक स्टार्टअप्स बना के करोड़पति बने हैं, ESOP से.
So they are cool करोड़पतिस.
They are cool करोड़पति, like CCs. तो वो बहुत अलग करेंगे. Like you will find them कि वो क्रिप्टो में इन्वेस्ट कर रहे हैं, वो स्टॉक मार्केट में इन्वेस्ट कर रहे हैं, वो हाई अल्फा और हाई बीटा में इन्वेस्ट कर रहे हैं. They hate traditional ways of investing. रियल एस्टेट भी अगर वो लेते हैं तो वो सिर्फ टैक्स सेविंग की पर्पस से लेते हैं, इन्वेस्टमेंट के पर्पस से इतना नहीं लेते हैं. लेते भी हैं तो बहुत एग्रेसिव बेट्स लेते हैं वगैरह वगैरह. एंड देन देयर इज दिस मिडिल ग्राउंड जो धंधे से नहीं बट काम करने से अमीर बने हैं. प्रोफेशनल्स हु हैव गॉटन देयर, लाइक डॉक्टर्स और लॉयर्स और चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट्स और बैंकर्स, और अब थोड़ा यूट्यूबर आ गया, बट they were salaried people. लेकिन उनकी सैलरी अच्छी थी, they saw good growth, they worked of course really hard, they went to good schools and all that, and वो कहीं मिडिल में है, राइट, जहाँ उनके लिए मेन चीज ये है कि अपना घर होना चाहिए, फिर अपना अच्छी सी एक गाड़ी होनी चाहिए, अच्छा सा सर्विस होना चाहिए. They will never feel comfortable paying for a business class. वो travel economy करेंगे, but बहुत मजा आएगा उनको जब कंपनी उनको बिजनेस क्लास पे भेज देगी, and they will of course make sure कि वो क्लिक करके इंस्टाग्राम पे डालें and stuff, and they get these high points where the world acknowledges them and their value, and they're able to show that and so on. And it's very interesting how that even in the same country is so divergent in terms of wealth and how they have accumulated that wealth, determined by how they've accumulated that. Like वो अंकल हैं, I'm constantly amazed. And ये सिर्फ दिल्ली की बात कर रहा हूँ. I'm sure it's true for any other large city in the country, even smaller ones for that matter. इस देश में बेशुमार पैसा एक ऐसे इंसान के पास है जिसको अगर आप सड़क पे देखें
पता भी नहीं चलेगा.
वो ठेले पे रुक कर चाट पापड़ी खा रहे होंगे, लेकिन 600 करोड़ के मालिक हो.
This is the fourth category, the category where Ankur belongs to. There's no need for validation. I know you travel a lot. Last year you traveled over 100 days,
180 days to be precise.
You did not share that with anyone, not even a single photograph on Instagram, right? So that means you are very comfortable in your own skin. In fact, in all the videos that I've seen, in my conversation right now, right, I'm not even getting an ounce of need for validation. You're very comfortable in your skin. How to move from C's to genuine crores? Let's call them GCs.
Yeah. मुझे ना generally इस सवाल का जवाब नहीं.
By the way, this is the fourth book in the writing.
I know exactly, like the C's in our world.
Yeah.
And then you just go about explaining it. But I genuinely do not know the answer to this question. मुझे नहीं पता कि मैं ऐसा क्यों हूँ. मुझे ऐसा, क्योंकि मुझे पता नहीं है कि मैं ऐसा क्यों हूँ, मैं किसी को बता नहीं सकता कि ऐसे पहुंच कैसे सकते हैं, बन कैसे सकते हैं. I'm just very glad that I'm like this, but I have really no idea.
You know, since you're talking about being grounded, Ankur, how do you keep a balance? You are an influencer. Come on, let's accept it. You are one of the most celebrated YouTuber, one of the most celebrated podcaster. You have written 3 books. You have enough and more to celebrate in your life. How do you keep yourself grounded?
I certainly surround myself with people who keep me grounded.
School friends.
Like बिल्कुल. मेरी कोई भी दोस्ती नई नहीं है, कम से कम 10 साल पुरानी है।
तो दोस्त ने 10 साल वेट करना पड़ेगा क्या?
हाँ, लाइक तो
okay, we'll celebrate 50s together.
Yes.
Okay.
So, and they know me when I was nobody, and they still treat me that way, and I love that because that's what I need. मुझे yes man, yes crowd नहीं चाहिए, मुझे वो लोग नहीं चाहिए कि हाँ अंकुर आप सही हो, मुझे ऐसे लोग चाहिए जो बोलेंगे यार क्या बकवास कर रहा है,
देसी भाषा,
बिल्कुल
देसी भाषा,
बिल्कुल देसी भाषा में, and वैसे भी दोस्त बिल्कुल। तो that is certainly one, and two is you get to a certain point in life जब आपको एहसास होता है कि यार आपको कुछ पता ही नहीं है, कुछ पता ही नहीं है, and
ऐसे चौधरी बनते जा रहे हैं,
मतलब पता नहीं क्यों किस चौड़ में बैठे हुए हैं। And that's why I like Twitter/X as a platform, क्योंकि I spend एक तो मेरी फीड काफी, मैंने उस पर काम किया है तो काफी क्लीन है, and it's very high quality. I follow the right kind of people and I react to the right kind of content that I want to see, and it's just so rich when you see people with such depth around politics, around spirituality, around startups, around technology. आपको लगता है यार कुछ भी नहीं पता यार, कुछ पता ही नहीं है, कितने ही सरफेस पे हो तुम। And I then was like, you don't need to work hard than to be grounded. You just like literally वो live wire आपको जमीन तक छू देती है और आपको न्यूट्रल कर देती है।
You know, you've used the word spirituality 3 times, and that's another subject I would love to dig deeper, not in this conversation, but in our next conversation, Ankur, for sure. You know, 3 quick steps that could help an individual to get into the wealth creation mode.
I think the first is to realize that you need to be very disciplined. If you do not have the habit of saving money when you start earning, you will never have the habit of saving money even when you're earning a lot. It is a habit. It is not a function of money.
And you can develop that.
You absolutely can, like any other habit. So please develop the habit of saving and then investing that money. Number 2, when you invest, be disciplined with that. Don't be active with it. ये नहीं है कि अरे आज क्या हुआ, ये up हो गया, ये down हो गया, वगैरह वगैरह. It's just you devote that to an expert. It could be a mutual fund manager, it could be a portfolio manager, it could be a wealth manager, whatever the case may be. एंड आप उन पे भरोसा करें, आप अपनी मेहनत अपनी इनकम पे रखें, उसको बढ़ाइए, एंड वो इंसान अपनी मेहनत करके आपके पैसे को बढ़ाने की कोशिश करेगा, बट दैट्स द रिलेशनशिप एंड द symbiotic relationship you should have. And then the third, which is the most important thing, is just be patient. And it's very hard to say that because 20s में ना किसी भी इंसान को अगर मैं पूछूं कि आपको कंपाउंडिंग समझ में आती है, बोलती हाँ आती है, लेकिन कभी कंपाउंडिंग जिंदगी में महसूस करी है? नहीं करी। क्यों? क्योंकि कंपाउंडिंग के लिए सबसे कोर इंग्रेडिएंट होता है वक्त, एंड वक्त तो है ही नहीं। आप तो अभी 20s में ही हैं, तो आपने 10, 15, 20 साल की कंपाउंडिंग तो देखी ही नहीं है ना, तो यू हैव नो चॉइस बट टू ट्रस्ट द कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ कंपाउंडिंग एंड बी पेशेंट। बहुत खूबसूरत कहानी है, एंड मैं अक्सर इसको दोहराता हूँ कि बिल गेट्स और वॉरेन बफेट दो काफी क्लोज फ्रेंड हैं, एंड बिल गेट्स वॉरेन बफेट से पूछते हैं कि वॉरेन बफेट आपका जो इन्वेस्टिंग स्टाइल है वो बहुत ही सिंपल है, आप बोलते हैं कि सही दाम पे स्टॉक्स खरीदिए एंड फिर उनको जितनी लंबी देर तक होल्ड कर सकते हैं करिए, क्योंकि फिर कंपाउंडिंग का असली रूप दिखेगा। तो इसी स्टाइल को अडॉप्ट करके बहुत सारे लोग करोड़पति क्यों नहीं बन गए? एंड वॉरेन बफेट हंसते हुए बोलते हैं इसलिए बिल, क्योंकि बहुत ही कम लोग हैं इस दुनिया में जो कि धीरे से अमीर बनना चाहते हैं। हर एक इंसान को रातों रात अमीर बनना है, एंड कंपाउंडिंग से आप रातों रात अमीर नहीं बन सकते। तो आप अगर रातों रात अमीर बनना चाहेंगे,
रातों रात करोड़पति बनना चाहेंगे,
तो फिर आपको रातों रात वो रिस्क लेने पड़ेंगे जो शायद आपको जिंदगी भर करोड़पति ना बना पाए।
One historical figure that you would love to meet and why?
Gautam Buddha. 100%. I just feel that life is so wonderfully lived. I'm not a religious person. I don't follow actively any religion. Lekin his teachings, his way of life, his life in general has been fascinating for me. एंड लंच डिनर तो दूर की बात है, मैं उनके साथ खाने पे तो वक्त बर्बाद नहीं करूंगा, बट आई जस्ट लव टू बी इन हिज प्रेजेंस एंड जस्ट feel what it would have been when he was alive.
Yeah. Something that you would not leave your home without.
My phone.
Son or daughter?
Oof. Yeah, daughter. But
Yeah.
Vidur, I love you.
Daughters are precious.
They are.
Yeah. And son are, you cannot shine in your life without the sun.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. One regret of your life?
None. Zero regrets. I am where I am because of all the mistakes that I've made. Wouldn't change anything.
Where do you see India is moving in the next 10 years and what role are you going to play?
It's going to be an incredible time for this country over the next 20, 30 years. I feel there are a lot of things to be fixed, but we are just set up for driving or riding what is both the demographic dividend of having a young population, the technology dividend of having a population that can work on it, the intelligence and the IQ at an average level to comprehend it. And then just the fact that the world that needs people like us are on a decline in terms of both demographic and in terms of intent and perhaps even culture.
Yeah.
And I feel that we will ride that in a way that no other country has ever seen.
Yeah. We spoke about podcasters. One thing that you learned from Ranveer Allahabadia?
Just curiosity. I love him for the fact that he's been doing it for like donkey's years now. That's sounds se laga hua hai. I adore him for just his tenacity, his discipline, and his commitment of doing this. And his continued ambition. वो UK में अभी podcast कर रहा है, US गया था वहाँ कर रहा है, and he's gotten the biggest figures out there. He's hands down the biggest podcaster that India has, and I'm sure very, very soon one of the biggest podcasters that the world will also have, not already. But I love how he has moved as he has grown his content. So he's a true friend in that sense when it comes to content.
Raj Shamani.
Again, his curiosity at 27, he's just so incredibly curious. He's ambitious, he's driven, he will challenge you, he will really challenge you. And that's what I like, because the podcast then becomes more of an intellectual debate. And it's thoroughly enjoyable to spend time.
If one advice you can offer to Ankur Warikoo, what would that be and why?
Continue being the way you are because you're doing good.
Thank you. So with this, we are coming to the end of the conversation, Ankur. What an incredible conversation.
Thank you. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Thank you for being you. I genuinely loved this conversation.
Thank you. Thank you. Really means a lot.
And learned a lot.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. All the best.
Thank you so much.